So, hi, I'm Sue Cooper, co-director of Feast for the Soul, and I have with me Kirsty Allan, who is based in England too. And Kirsty is a weird sister. um, Quite a few of you may know about the Science and Consciousness Conference that a number of us have been attending over the years, and I think we've just had was it our fourth or our fifth conference? I can't remember. Fourth.
I think it was the fourth, I think.
Yeah, the fourth one. And it's an annual conference that happens in October or November. And Kirsty is one of the presenters and one of the people who is deeply immersed in the Wyrd technology, spelt W-Y-R-D. And it could be thought of as complicated if you're not from a science background. However, it isn't, because Kirsty has this special magic, a key to be able to unlock for us. We folk who are fairly new to this as to what the Wyrd technology is. So for today, we're going to look at sort of the history that led up to the Wyrd scope and the Wyrd Light. So Kirsty, I'd be really grateful if you could introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about you and then move into Wyrd.
Okay, well, thank you. Thanks for having me here. And the reason I keep looking over there is I'm checking the Wi-Fi connection because quite typically, where the more weird your life gets, the more, flaky Wi-Fi and, technology seems to be around you. So if I disappear, that's why we'll put it down to psychokinesis. Why not? So yeah, so my name's Kirsty. Some of you know me already. And I'm a researcher. So among many other things, I'm a researcher, consciousness researcher, parapsychology. I really like to look at the more unusual capacities of consciousness. So we're looking at extrasensory perception. So being able to view things, to acquire information beyond what's currently understood. And also psychokinesis, or PK, if you like, which is mind-matter interaction, and our ability to perhaps have influence on the material world around us, something that we think is really overlooked. We've kind of trained ourselves not to see it anymore, just a bit of the sort of paradigm that we're all in. And our mission at Wyrd is to help people reignite with a kind of indigenous wisdom of Wyrd. So WYRD, for example, is an Anglo-Saxon word, and it sort of predates the regular spelling of weird, where, things which are weird, we kind of want to other them a little bit. We've been trained to do that. But originally, the concept of weird was about the deep weave, the deep web of interconnectivity, and our ability to hold agency there, our ability to, weave magic, if you like. And that's very much the heart of the research and the development and design of the technologies that Wyrd are creating, so that we all can have a very real, or something we can really see, interaction with that world of Wyrd, that subtle kind of liminal space. So that's kind of where we're at. And today I was just going to take you through a little bit of this sort of story of how that came to be. And then next time we go a bit more of a deep dive, and we'll maybe look a little bit at the data, dare I say that word? But today, no graphs. So hope that's all right.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you, Kirsty. I'm just going to leave you to get on with it. And so
Okay.
myself. That's okay.
That's absolutely fine. I wasn't quite sure if I should just keep talking or if people wanted to interject or anything. Please do. Okay, so it's very apt actually that Sue's just taken us through this meditation all about stillness, because that's kind of, one of the key components of what we look at, is that in that place of stillness, it might be what we call a liminal space, somewhere that is unfixed. So for something to be liminal, it's kind of at a threshold point of becoming, which means, for example, if you're to walk through a doorway, there is a point when you pass through that doorway where you pass through a threshold, the limen, where you're kind of in neither room at the same time and also kind of both. There's an unfixed state of being. And in this kind of liminal part of life, this liminal state of consciousness, if you like, this liminal way of being, it's thought that perhaps this is where we're at our most potent, that we can maybe perceive beyond the regular means and acquire information somehow, sense deeply into the structures around us, and also in that place of unfixedness, our attention, our intention may just influence things just a little bit. And becoming more aware of that and the power of being in that space is really what we want to help people cultivate. So if you can think about the applications of that, like why might we do that? Why might we want to cultivate a kind of mind-matter interaction? Why do we want to cultivate some kind of mental interaction with life around us? Well, in that space, it perhaps is a difference between healing and not healing. For example, it might be, if you can imagine, in those sort of threshold moments where things are quite unfixed, it could be the toss of a coin. Is it heads or tails? The roll of a dice. What number is it going to land on? Maybe whether a spoon becomes pliable or not in a particular moment. The activity of atoms and tiny things, you know, does the wave, does the photon become a wave or a particle, for example? It's this point of unfixedness that it's about to become something. And all of the research into this area suggests that we can actually influence the fall of that dice, the flip of that coin, the state of matter, the state of the body and healing, and so on. And so, why wouldn't we cultivate this, right? But in looking at that kind of ancient world, perhaps our ancestors already knew this. Perhaps they really understood the importance of these liminal, unfixed spaces, because it's in those spaces of stillness where you have all the potential. You have all the probabilities and all the possibilities that can be manifest. Which one will be manifest? Perhaps we have a little bit more agency than we thought. And so we think about really old practices and maybe ancient tech, if you like. You might have something like this. Our ancestors may have had personalized little bag of wonder. Give it a good shake, mix it up, mix up the probabilities. Yeah, make it as random as we can, because we have this innate understanding that in randomness lies potential. And we might, for example, work with something like runes and pull out a particular stone. So in this instance, I pre-prepared this one, it's Isa, and it actually means stillness. So it's nice that that one came out just before the session. And also this little guy here actually represents like chance. So that was an interesting one, you know, to have these come out. And then the art would be about interpretation. So a little bit like leaning on that extrasensory perception, if you like, intuition and much more. And then we might have, in our timelines, in the West especially, we may have moved on to card decks. We may have added card decks into our repertoire. And of course, what do we do with a card deck? We shuffle it. We have to shuffle it, yeah? We're almost like give it to a child, they will naturally start to shuffle. Give a child a bag of magic beans or runes, they will jiggle them around. There's an inherent understanding that this is important. And so if you can imagine researchers decide, we want to understand this. We want to understand how is it that some people just seem to know more than others through unusual means? How do they seem to have these kind of, say, precognitive dreams? Or how is it these people have an ability to heal people remotely, you know, miles and miles away from someone else? What is this? What is this kind of manifestation all about? Well, in our scientific paradigm, it's important that we have, you know, some kind of control or some kind of protocol that allows us to gather consistent, repeatable information so that we can have a look. And if you can imagine that coin that gets flipped, heads, tails, heads, tails, heads, tails, it's 50-50, right? It's 50% chance of it being one, 50% chance of it being other. But what if you flipped that coin several thousand times and actually it wasn't 50-50, it was 40-60? Then you'd be interested, right? As a researcher, you'd think something's going on here. What is going on here? And so you would want to examine what are the people doing when they're influencing the flip of the coin. And so in the 20th century, researchers started to use what's called random number generators or random event generators. It's the same thing, just slightly different tech term. And they're basically fancy coin flippers, and they're churning out ones and zeros randomly, funnily enough. And so as these machines just churn out their ones and zeros, there is nothing known, there is nothing in, known physics that should be influencing these to be anything other than random and within a particular chance expectation. And yet, over, oh gosh, the best part of the 20th century, lots of different centers like the Rhine Center and then the Princeton Engineering Anomalies Research Lab, which is very much at the heart of Wyrd as well, did immense research. And they found that over hundreds, if not thousands of trials, that people could in fact influence the ones and zeros. So what we ended up with, I say we, I wasn't even there, but collectively we ended up with this huge canon, this huge amount of research that confirms that when people are involved in an activity, those ones and zeros start to kind of deviate away from chance expectation, what we would expect to see in terms of 50-50. And so that has led on to Wyrd Technologies developing these devices. And I'm sure Sue has shown you already.
But could I just ask you, Kirsty, and this is fantastic because it's really, keep the device up, that's fine. It's absolutely fascinating. I think I hear what you're saying, but just for that clarity, is that when people become actively involved with the intention to change or to be part of the interaction, whatever's happening, you can actually change the outcome, or there is a potential to change the outcome by the power of attention.
We think that attention, hello, the light likes that comment. Yeah, we think attention has some kind of key point to play in it. We don't know exactly how it all works, and we don't know exactly what it all means, but we know that these effects are real and they are replicable. Like you can replicate them over and over. So when we think there is something like coin flipping, dice rolling, shuffling of ones and zeros, which shouldn't be influenced by anything, we find that actually they are under certain conditions. And it's those certain conditions that we're looking at to see what can this tell us about attention, intention, emotion, perhaps bondedness between people who are engaged together. So, for example, in the PAIR, the Princeton Engineering Anomalies Research Lab, they ran lots of different experiments, very simple, where they just asked people to try and influence the direction of a line up or down. And that was controlled by those ones and zeros. And they would find that, yeah, people could actually, above chance expectation, more often than they should be able to, they could take that line in a particular direction and into what we would refer to as statistical significance, meaning that it's very, very, very unlikely, say something like 300,000 to 1 expectation of it happening just by chance. And that's really what we're looking at. And so we have these devices. I won't get too technical about it, maybe next time, but this is the first one, aptly named the Wyrdoscope. And it's all about just churning out its ones and zeros quite passively in the background while people maybe do a ritual, or maybe people engage in a meditation, or perhaps a healing session, or any number of things. And the data that comes out of these machines is indicating that at certain points in that ritual, or in that meditation, or in that healing session, at certain points, structures appear in those ones and zeros, which ought not to be there by regular scientific inquiry. They ought not to be there, and yet they are. And so we're on this mission really about recruiting as many citizen scientists as well to join us and to work with the technology and tell us what you're noticing. So the team have launched this as well. This is a kind of a prototype, and it's basically a sort of lit up version of the box. So rather than having to look at graphs and data structures and things, those same structures are simply being translated into color. We don't know what the colors mean. In a way, they're just colors at this point. But what we are noticing is that perhaps when people are in a shared activity, perhaps a meeting like this, the light will glow a certain color for a long period of time, or it will become very, very intense. And the brightness, the intensity of the light is an indication of how significant this sort of deviation from random, if you like, is in a particular moment. So it's like a bit like a mirror in a way. It's like real-time reflection of something going on. And I've noticed, anecdotally, so far, I've noticed that if I have this on and one of the other Wyrd team members has one on and we're in a Zoom and we're getting into a really kind of good flow of conversation and ideas and things, the lights seem to match each other. They seem to pair up in terms of their color. It's got to the point where it's quite funny now, and we're working out a way of how can we take random screenshots throughout that we can't predict, so that we can then look back and say, how often was it blue? Were they both blue at the same time? And so on and so on. And so there we have it. So from the kind of most ancient wisdom that our ancestors are passing on to us about work with random, work with this kind of unfixedness, this liminal point of, is it going to be a 0? Is it going to be a 1? Is it going to be a yes? Is it going to be a no? Is it going to be go forward, go backwards? Whatever it is, this almost kind of binary choice sometimes that we have in life, to grow or to atrophy, for example. When we enter into that state, or we allow that state into our awareness, we seem to have more agency over it and its outcomes.
Wow.
There
So
we go.
we affect the feel around us.
Yeah.
I do remember the first time I went to Science and Consciousness. It was very much about the physical connectivity of people who are actually together. However, this is very interesting because throughout this event, the Feast for the Soul for the 40 days, we're obviously on this medium, which is the virtual medium. So it's going to be very interesting to read. I've got a box in front of me here, and that we have taken it over the last year with different groups to Ireland and into sacred circles and into all over the place, really, meditating in different places through different rituals, which that data is still being read at the moment. But that was always in the physical. So now to move with the box and also the lamp. And the point that I've made quite a lot is that we're all in this together, aren't we? It's this wonder of not knowing and being at this cutting edge of, we know it's something, and we know that we are bathed in this conscious field, and what is our part in it? And to see the data, the two little lines maybe coming together and then peaking, knowing what that is very exciting.
Yeah. What this research really, in my opinion, what it really affords for people is that if you have this kind of Western mindset, and you intuitively know that consciousness is not just this byproduct of your brain and it's just somehow stuck in there whirling around. If you have this intuition that there's more to it, and you've had moments of like extrasensory perception, you've had moments of deep empathy and connection, you've had moments where, like small miracles and things happen, and there is something more. By having data collected through the regular empirical methods that back it up, can be life-changing for people. It kind of presents a sense of complete permission to be immersed in this far better idea that consciousness is what we call non-local. It's not located here, and it's not located over there. It's something more like say gravity. It's a field in which we all interact, and that's the kind of working theory that we subscribe to. Of course, open to different ideas, of course. But yeah, so this is, in a way, this is bridging the gap between the inner world and the material world, because we have something which is very physically material. It's 3D printed, that's how material it is. But it's reflecting something back to us which was actually imperceptible before.
Kirsty, wow. I'm going to suggest that we hold that space now. And when we come back for our next Zoom, our next recording next week, you'll move now into a deeper place, won't you? This is planting the seeds, really, of this is what it is. Is that okay with you?
Me, yeah, absolutely. I'd be delighted to. I just hope I'm making enough sense. I mean, it all made a lot better sense in my head before I started talking, and then random things happen in your head, right? And but the
Yeah.
words came out in whatever order they came out, and hopefully it was useful enough.
It's very, very clear. Well, to me, but we'll take questions in a moment, because it's a difficult, if you can't see, if your senses don't connect with it, as it were, our five senses, then we've been taught, haven't we, through the material realm, that it doesn't exist.
That's
Um,
it. Yep.
to know that we are influencing through our own being the field around us
Yeah.
is so exciting. And it kind of it probably make us want to be more coherent, so that we can play and dance and sing and be part of this energy field, that we can raise the energy and raise the awareness of consciousness that is
Yeah.
primary.
That's it. And it's the implications there, aren't there, about how our thoughts may be affecting the world around us. And so we can make more informed, empathic decisions,
Yeah.
for ourselves and for the collective.
Thank you so much.